always get excited when we get to talk about the sport of shooting here on Off the Podium. And in the lead up to this interview, I realize we've had obviously several shooters on the show. We've talked to shooters in skeet, in trap. We've talked to shooters in air pistol, but never air rifle. And we're going to break that duck today because we are speaking to a Tokyo Olympian, competed in the 10-meter air rifle in Tokyo, and also recently has become a world champion in the 10-meter air rifle in the sport of shooting. And I'm so pleased to welcome to the show to learn a little bit more about the sport, her career, and everything else in between from the great... Now, I'm wearing the jersey today. I had to do it. From the great nation of the United States of America, Alison Weisz. Ali, first of all, welcome to Off the Podium. I got through that introduction eventually, so I'm glad I can get to the point where I introduce you to the show. That's the main part.
Yeah, you're good. I'm doing well. I'm really excited to be on this podcast and also just be able to share things about my sport, myself, the things I love, and just sort of educate everyone.
Well, I want to be educated. I want to be one of those people right now to learn about this, because this is the thing that fascinates me about shooting. And I'm sure a lot of people who maybe will just tune in during the Olympics and go, oh, you use guns and you shoot at a target, that's pretty much it. But it's not. There's obviously a lot more to it. There's rifle, there's pistol, there's shotgun. There's all these different categories and types of guns and everything along those lines, which always fascinates me. But let's start at the beginning. How do you get involved in the sport of competitive shooting?
A lot of various ways. Everybody's a little bit different here in the US. So the way I got involved was I grew up in Montana, and it's a very large hunting state with, big game hunting, elk, a lot of big white-tailed deer, mule deer, things like that. But my family did not hunt, actually. We didn't own any guns. But there was a flyer at my elementary, middle school. I think I was 9 years old, roughly. And so that was when everything used to be on paper. So I grabbed a little flyer, brought it home, and it was a gun safety and education program. And so I was kind of a little tomboy, was kind of wanted to get involved in everything. And I was like, this sounds really cool. So I told my parents about it, gave my parents the flyer, said I wanted to do it. So basically, they're the ones that have the credit of getting me involved because they signed me up. Turned out to be more than just the gun safety and education program. It was actually competitive BB gun target shooting.
Wow.
And that's where I learned the basis and everything about the sport.
How do your parents react to that? If you come from a family that doesn't even own a gun, to go like, hey, mum and dad, I'd like to give this a go. I mean, do they sort of question that straight away, or are they just like wanting to fulfill whatever you want to do as a 9-year-old? Like, sure, give it a go.
Yeah, they were very supportive, actually. So they kind of looked at it from the standpoint of, we don't have any. They weren't against it. They just weren't big hunters. So they were like, said, we don't have any. But if you go to somebody's house, we want you to know how to act around them. And so at the time, they thought it was just the gun safety and education. So just in case I went over to a friend's house and somebody didn't have them put away like they were supposed to, or locked up like they were supposed to have them, I wouldn't think it's a toy, or I wouldn't, do anything unsafe with them. So they were very supportive. And then, of course, when we walked down and learned it was a sport as well, and it was a sport in colleges, here in the U.S., it was a sport in the Olympics, they were even more supportive of it because I was falling in love with it. So they just said, okay, this is the path we're going down. What do we need to do?
Fantastic. Were you active in many other sports at that point? Were you bringing flyers home all the time going, hey, mum and dad, I want to try this sport as well?
A little bit, not a lot of the running sports, not a big fan of running. So I definitely, through middle school, I played, middle school basketball and volleyball. And then through our high school, the 4 years of high school here in the US, I played volleyball predominantly. So it was made my way on the freshman team, junior varsity team to the varsity team at my high school. And then shooting as well. So I was kind of doing both of those simultaneously.
I know most states in the US will kind of have their sport, obviously depending on where you are in the country, certain sports are more popular than others. What's Montana's sport? What is the sport that Montana is best known for?
I'm not entirely sure, honestly. Probably just hunting. Which I know it's not an Olympic sport, but definitely well known for hunting. I think we have some skiing up there. I know a few actually Paralympic skiers live and train up there in the area that I'm from. And we also have actually a handful of shooting athletes from the state of Montana on the U.S. national team. So
Great. There you go. I always love being educated about these sort of things with that. Did you always have an idea of an Olympics in your future? Not necessarily when you got into shooting, but maybe as a young child, were you watching the Olympics, actively aware of it, or did this become something that came to you as you progressed in shooting?
I would say a combination. I definitely knew of the Olympics, had watched the Olympics. I was obsessed with volleyball all of my life and like beach volleyball. Went to a lot of volleyball camps, watched beach volleyball at the Summer Olympics. That was sort of my favorite thing. But honestly, my skills weren't really there in volleyball. I was good enough to play in high school, but not necessarily beyond that. So it was always an aspiration of mine, but not something I ever thought was possible. And then when I found shooting and the shooting sports, and I had such a large passion for it, I realized that this could maybe be possible here. And, you know, I had a mentor when I very first started at that very first BB gun night that told me that I had a lot of natural talent. And if I was willing to put in the work, I could go really far with it. So that kind of planted the seed for going to the Olympics for the shooting sports.
Is natural talent in shooting just the simple case of you're really good at hitting a target, or is it down to the fact that you are able to do the little things like controlling the breathing, the concentration, all those things that are involved in a sport like shooting?
I think it's probably more that you're able to do the little things. And even if it's as simple as, you know, a 9-year-old, you're able to listen, you're able to receive feedback. And when somebody's telling you to relax or be more calm or, you know, follow through longer when you're, you know, hold the trigger back a little bit longer when you're done, and you're actually doing that. And you're also, of course, seeing the results on the other end of the range on the target being good results. I think it's probably some of that.
And when you start with that BB gun, what's the choice aspect when it comes to choosing rifle, pistol, shotgun? You know, is it kind of just what's available to you at that age? Because I can't imagine they're going to go, hey, Ali, here's a shotgun at 9 years old. But like, I mean, is it a simple case of you learn your way through each of them and eventually choose one over the other?
I think you kind of just start in it. So since a BB gun is, yes, just a BB gun, but it's more similar to a rifle. That's sort of what our club had. So that's what I progressed up through. Our club did not have skeet or trap shooting. So that wasn't even an option for me. I mean, shoot, sometimes now I get along with a lot of the trap athletes on the team, and we'll joke around, and or trap and skeet athletes, both of them, and joke around with them saying, like, man, I didn't even know shotgun was an option. Maybe I should have gone that route, even though I've been incredibly successful with rifle. But yeah, so I think it was just how it happened. You know, that's what I started with. And then I did see pistol a little bit later on, but I already had so much passion for rifle that was the route I was going to keep going.
And because I can imagine it's a big change if you'd all of a sudden right now in your career go, hey, I want to try the pistol, right? Like it's sort of not like a simple change from one sport to the other. There's a big difference between each of the guns.
Absolutely. And it's kind of crazy to think because it's all shooting sports, right? Just various types of it. But to go from rifle to pistol, rifle, you're very precise. You're holding with these open sights, like open peep sights. So you're doing the best you can and trying to make essentially everything perfect. And you don't want any movement. Where pistol, you're holding it with one hand. There's a lot going on. The sights look completely different. And when you pistol shooter, you kind of have to accept the movement and then you just execute cleanly within that. And as a rifle shooter, it's like, I just want it to stop moving. Can I get it to stop moving? I can't take the shot if it's still moving. So crazy different. And then same thing with shotguns is, you know, we have a lot of trigger control and slowly squeeze the trigger, but theirs is a lot of reaction time. So they're a little bit more jumpy and aggressive on the trigger than we are. So trying to go over and shoot that, I'm like, I can't follow the bird through the air. I can't convince myself to shoot quick enough. So it's pretty wild.
Can I this might be a dumb question or a really smart question, I don't know, but as somebody who maybe isn't that knowledgeable on the differences between types of guns, can you explain to me the difference easily between a rifle and a shotgun?
Okay, yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it is a rifle, especially competitive, on the competitive side of things, Olympic style, is only ever shooting one round at a time. So If anybody knows anything about shotgun, a shotgun can shoot one round at a time, and it's called a slug. But otherwise, a shotgun shoots a shell with a whole bunch of little BBs in it, and they spread out to hit your target. Where rifle is just one single bullet or one single pellet, and it goes through whether a bullet with a .22 rifle has the gunpowder and everything, so it strikes it, ignites, and then pushes the bullet out. And a air rifle, which is what I compete in predominantly, is compressed air that comes up through the gun and pushes the pellet out.
There you go. Look at that. The word of the day is education, Ali, and I feel like I am definitely being educated with all of that. The progression then, so once you start obviously going through the ranks, you mentioned high school, you mentioned college, obviously the collegiate system in the US obviously has a variety of different sports where you can kind of progress with that. What is the collegiate system like for shooting in the US? And just like most sports, is it incredibly competitive to reach those high NCAA levels that obviously you did reach?
Yes, absolutely. It's a lot of young athletes' dreams, and of course, just like the Olympics are for a lot of athletes in all sports, but not everyone will necessarily reach it. There's not a college rifle team at every single university here in the US. So it's much smaller than your mainstream sports in the US, like American football, soccer, and then volleyball, softball. Those are at a lot of universities, where rifle's a little bit more niche, I guess. I think we maybe have 25 universities total, which sound like a lot, but there's really only about 8 to 12 incredibly competitive ones. So everyone in the US that competes at a young level are trying to go to the same 8 to 12 universities in the US.
Wow.
And that's not to include, so a lot of the universities have foreign athletes come in and shoot as well. So
incredible. And then when it comes to that level of you're going to colleges and applying, are you having to wait to get recruited? Do you send applications? Is it a mixture of both? How does that work?
Definitely a mixture of both. So it kind of depends on how good you are, honestly. If you're the top junior athlete in the US, you're obviously going to get recruited by a lot of those top schools because they want the top athletes. If you're kind of in the middle of the pack, you're probably doing a mixture of both. Some coaches are talking to you and recruiting you. You're probably sending some emails saying you're interested in these universities. And then sometimes in the bottom of the pack, you have to basically, fight for yourself and be your own best advocate and say, hey, I can be good. I will be good. I want to go to your university.
And do you obviously, I can imagine, have that preference though, right? You're wanting to be like at the best one, and do you kind of send them a couple of extra emails each day versus some of those other ones?
Yeah, I think for sure. If you really want to go there, you're probably sending them a lot of emails. And of course, college coaches are busy, so they don't always get back to you. So you might be annoying them, but hey, if it gets you on a team that you want to be on, do it.
It pays to be persistent, right? What's the worst they can do? Say no? There's obviously a level of stalking. We don't want to get into that, but it's still it's a case of I call it, but some people call it stalking, some call it persistence. There's a line there. I think, Ali, when it comes down to that. Did you once you got through that collegiate system, was there a moment where you all of a sudden thought when you were getting the results that, hey, the Olympics, this is my goal, or this could be a realistic, no pun intended, target for me?
Right. That was good.
We're gonna get a few shooting jokes in there, right? I'm sure you never hear them.
I think it was always in my mind that I wanted to do it. I didn't really know when, how, if it will still for sure happen, but I knew I wanted to do it. So I had actually never made a US, our US national team for the shooting team throughout any of my college, which is pretty unusual. A lot of kids actually start traveling with the junior team internationally and making the junior team or making a development team, because we have these other teams, but I never made any of them. I just was always right on the edge or right below what the cutoff was. So of course, sometimes I was disheartening. I was like, well, maybe I won't ever be able to make it. But I knew I wanted it. So I kept working hard, and then got older in college, to my junior, senior year. I was like, I'll figure it out. And thankfully, after the summer after my senior year, so I graduated from college, and that's when I made the national team for the first time. And I've been on it since. So that was in the summer of 2017.
Wow.
I've been on it since, just working hard and trying to stay on it, making World Cup teams and going Olympic teams. So. And
here we are all these years later, Olympian, world champion, all the fun stuff that we'll obviously get to. We should mention University of Memphis. Go Tigers, right? Have I got that correctly? Okay.
Well, I actually almost correct. I did
almost
go there
correct.
as well.
Okay. Yeah. Correct me, Ali. Come on. Fix up my research team. I'll fire them after this interview. It's all good.
Fine. I did go to both. I actually graduated with my undergraduate bachelor's degree from the University of Mississippi, or Ole Miss. that's who I competed for at the NCAA level. And then I got my master's degree from the University of Memphis, and I was actually their coach. And that's where I was when I made the Olympic team. So they hold a special place in my heart for sure.
Okay, so I like that. That kind of you can go there for both. So I mean, that's a fairly decent change from Montana then to Mississippi and Memphis, right? Like that's what from the north basically to the south essentially, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And is that much of I was going to say, there you go. Talk about that because, like, I mean, I've traveled all around and I understand kind of you are in different regions of the country and it is a big, significant shift when you are in the north to the south. So how did you find that change going from those two regions?
It was exciting for me. I love traveling. So being able to just see how people live, like they live completely differently. And some of the stuff I fell in love with was I felt like people were so much nicer, just, friendlier, naturally on the street, saying hello, inviting you into their homes, even if they don't really know you. Some of it was even just at restaurants. I felt like the customer service was more sweet. If they messed something up, they were like, I'm so sorry, we'll fix it and give you free dessert. Where in the north, if they messed it up, they were just like, it's actually your fault.
you know what? You blame the Canadians, right? They think they're nice, but they're
I'm
far.
Sure
Yeah, they're secretly seeping down there. I found that though in the South. Every time I've been in the South though too, it's just such a pleasant place to be when it comes to that atmosphere and the food. Like I obviously know you sort of outside of your athletics career is your nutritional career, which I mean, does that make it hard when you're in such a place where the food is absolutely incredible, but probably doesn't really fit into your diet?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. There's days I'm like, dang, like I really could go for a whole bunch of fried chicken or a whole bunch of this. It is delicious food. I definitely don't withhold it from myself because I love it, but you have to kind of bring yourself back, reel it in a little bit every now and
then. Yeah, I can imagine. No sweet tea really, unless it's been a good day, I guess, or I don't know, you just won a world championship. I can probably have a glass of sweet tea. Yeah. Probably.
I really want it. I can probably drink it.
Yeah, you probably allow yourself that. So you made the US team in 2017, World Championships in 2018, where you finished 66th, I believe. What was that sort of experience like in such a short period of time, making your first team to then competing in your first World Championships?
Yeah, crazy. Overwhelming. Pretty much batshit crazy.
There it is. There's the language. I like it. I say to all our guests beforehand, as an Australian, you can swear it. They get excited, so I'm liking that. There we go. I'll keep a tally.
It was a wild experience. I had a whole lot to learn. I had never traveled internationally before, so I had a whole lot to learn in a really short amount of time. And then also just learning how to travel and compete against some of the best in the world everywhere we went, and still learning how to compete myself. Still trying to shoot better every time I was shooting, still trying to learn the sport even more and kind of perfect my craft, which we always are. I still am. But yeah, it was a lot. I kind of felt like I was thrown under, thrown into the fire, I guess, so to say. But it was absolutely worth it. I was drinking from the water hose or the fire hose, however you want to say it. And I think it taught me a lot, humbled me really quickly, especially having a very poor performance and poor outcome at that World Championships in 2018. Made me realize that this is not what I want. I don't want to come to these matches and just be mediocre, right? Or be less than mediocre. I want to come to these matches and win these matches. So whatever I need to do, I'll do it.
It's kind of like you need almost a light bulb moment sometimes, I guess, when you put yourself out in those situations, particularly if you've not really competed against international competition before, right, to test where you're at and where you want to be, essentially.
Right.
And when it comes down to from that point on, so once you make a World Championships, do you then automatically enter the World Cup circuit? Is it more of a case of what you can compete in, you can pick and choose your events? Sort of what's that level like after you've gone to a World Championships where you think to yourself, well, what next?
Right. So in our country, we still have to basically shoot and be selected. So you still have to be selected to go to these World Cups, even if you went to that first World Championship. We still have selection matches for the next set of World Cups or the next whole circuit. Right now, we're kind of using this rolling average system where it takes your top best scores and kind of ranks everybody with that average of your top best scores. I think it's like 5 of them. And then that's who gets selected to go to the, World Cups, this year's World Championships. That's what selected last year's World Championships. So it means a lot more matches, a lot more shooting, but you have to make the teams that you want to go to these matches for. But then once you do that, so say for this year, I was able to sit out a World Cup because I had some things I needed to do on the Army side. And that allowed me the opportunity to say, decline this World Cup, but yes to the other World Cups. So you get a little bit of freedom once you make those teams.
And I also guess you get a little bit of freedom once you win a world championship as well, right?
Right, yeah.
You just like,
unfortunately, no free
gold
ticket,
medal.
But yeah.
Like, I
wish you gave me a free ticket.
Yeah, sit this one out there for a little bit from that one sort of stuff. But after the World Championships, through those World Cups, and we get to 2020 where ultimately you do make the Olympic team. Now, I was watching a couple of interviews with you before the Olympics were cancelled, and I believe there's one online where you had just made the team. I think this was about February, March in actual 2020. Remember what those times were like? And you were obviously talking how excited you were and the opportunity and everything along those lines. Before we obviously discuss what happened from that point on, what was that moment like when you knew you were going to the Olympics? And do you classify yourself as an Olympian then? Or was it maybe until a year and a bit later you're at Tokyo where you're like, well, I'm an Olympian?
I think it was probably, I classified it once I was actually in Tokyo, just because it was such a unique Olympics in that there was a big question of if the Olympics were going to be fully canceled or just postponed, or if because they were postponed so much, are we going to reselect the team, which was obviously a huge scare because I was like, I already worked my butt off, made this team, and now I might have to remake this team. What happens if I don't make it the next one? That's awkward. So I definitely classified myself as an Olympian as soon as we were in Tokyo, probably walking through the opening ceremonies. And then the emotions when I first made it, it was just gratitude. I think that I had worked so hard, had been through some hardships, considered giving up a few times because of those hardships, but kept going. And I finally saw it all pay off and I saw what I was capable of. And obviously it's kept the fire lit to keep going even after.
Can you discuss some of those hardships sort of in that period? Like sort of what were some of those moments that you sort of had to overcome to eventually get to that point where you qualified for the Olympics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest one was actually in 2016 for the Olympic trials. Then the way our trials were set up at the time, it was a 2-part trial system. And you shot the first part. And if you were in the top 10, you were invited to the second part of the trials. And then that's how they were selecting the Olympic team. I was young, naive, not ever really even expecting to make the 2016 Olympic team. I was wanting to shoot the trials, but I wasn't thinking, I'll make this 2016 Olympic team. And I actually made the top 10. And at the time I was in college, so I made the top 10, which meant I was technically invited to the second round of Olympic trials. What I didn't know, and what my college coaches didn't know necessarily, and what the national coach at the time I guess maybe didn't realize, was that in order to shoot that second round of trials, I needed what was called a minimum qualifying score, which you can only get at an international competition.
Right.
And at the time, I had never traveled internationally, so I had no way of being able to get that. There was a singular opportunity. I can honestly say I don't even know if I would have been able to go had I known about the opportunity to get the MQS, but I know it was like the last chance for people to get the MQS score for anyone that didn't have it. I was never informed about it or didn't know, and that very well could have been because I couldn't. I might have been too far down on the list. There just wasn't enough spots, so I wasn't able to go. But because of that, I was not even to fill the spot that I had earned at the 2016 Olympic Trials Part 2. So I didn't even get the chance to compete and try to make the team. That being said, I honestly don't think I would have made it, but to have that opportunity kind of stripped from me for something I didn't know was extremely difficult. It made me wonder if I want to go through with this for another 4 years, what if something similar happened? How can I be a better advocate for myself to make sure that something like this doesn't happen? Felt like it was really political, but it might not have been. It might have just been the rules. I was just very naive at the time. So yeah, it was just a lot mentally to try to figure out what I wanted to do moving forward.
It's always that fascinating angle of Olympic athletes that a lot of people don't realize is that it is a 4-year cycle, of course, and when disappointment happens in that cycle, it is that level of questioning because it's a lot to go through. It's you know
For a
you're
long
not.
time.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you're not playing a sport where it's like, oh, I didn't win a championship this year. Let's just regroup and we can try again next year. I mean, it's a 4-year cycle, and particularly I can imagine too in a sport like shooting, where going back to say those sports you mentioned in the collegiate system, which get all the attention. You know, shooting's obviously not going to be treated like a swimming or, you know, volleyball, some of these sports where they're getting a lot more attention, a lot more funding. So, yeah, obviously a lot to overcome, which leads me into the mental health aspect because I always love learning about athletes and their mental health at you know, what they're doing for training. Shooting, obviously, very important because you need to be, have to be very mental aware. So are you, I can imagine, while you're training, you're out there target shooting, you've got that mental health aspect where you're training maybe with a sports psychologist to really improve that. And this is a very long-winded question, Ali. I'm getting to my point. Trust me. Is it a case of, you know, that helped you through that period to eventually get then to 2020?
Yes. Oh, 100%. All through my years competing at the university level, I worked with a sports psych pretty much weekly. I think it got to a point where she was kind of like, I think I can see you every 2 weeks. I said, are you sure? I don't really know if that's the way I should go about this. And she's like, no, I think you're doing okay. So I am a big fan, supporter, pusher, but not in a negative way. But I definitely think people should work with, whether it's sports psychology, just psychologists, like therapy, whatever it is, to have an outlet outside of your sport, your relationships, your life as a whole. So that was really big for me after the 2016 trials and just trying to figure out if I wanted to keep going, how to keep going about it, and then leading all the way up until my world championship last year, and then now moving towards Paris.
Is it a case of, in a sport like shooting, there is equal balance between mental and physical training, or is there sort of one that takes precedence over the other?
I would say as a whole, it's probably a little bit more mental just because we kind of pride ourselves pretty frequently on you don't have to be a certain height or a certain size or a certain weight to be successful at shooting. Like you can be whoever you are.
You're saying I've got a chance, Ali. I've got a chance. Okay, good.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
Sorry.
So I would say as a whole, just to compare those two side by side, it would probably be a little bit more mental. That being said, I'm a fan of fitness just in general. So it's like, if I can be fitter, I would imagine I could probably perform better, but there's no way to tell that for sure because we've seen athletes all heights, all sizes, all genders. So
I know I've talked to our shooters in the past on this show about what level of physical training is involved, but for somebody in air rifle, you know, when you are hitting the gym, what parts of the body are you mainly concentrating that help you the best when it comes to competing?
Yeah, I think a lot of like core and hip stability for me because it's a standing position. It kind of puts a lot of pressure on your back, a lot of pressure on your hips because you have your hip kicked out for bone on bone support. If you've seen photos of that in our positions, they're kind of crazy. So I think just a lot of core stability kind of helps with that balance. A lot of balance training too. I found that to be really helpful in my physical training is, you know, just working on balance boards, balance pads, because my balance kind of sucks naturally. Like I can hardly stand on one foot, let alone close my eyes on one foot, like only standing on one foot. It's ridiculous. Or some people don't have that, even as shooters. But I would say those are probably the two biggest things. And then of course, just to stay balanced, I do a little bit of everything, kind of whole body workouts.
I always love these sports where, you know, on paper, you don't look at a shooter or somebody who's going to the gym as, say, somebody who competes in weightlifting or sort of one of these sports. And I always love learning from these sports when you go to the gym and you're maybe up against athletes who are, you know, doing these sports. Is there some level of competitiveness in you where it's sort of like, well, hey, I want to show what I'm capable and show that shooters are, you know, needing to be physical on certain levels that people don't never give us credit for?
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. The only problem is I'm like, well, I don't actually have to lift 400 pounds. You know what I mean? Do I want to? Do I want to prove that we can? Yes. But then, especially because our shooting suits that we're using, like the canvas material suits that we're using for support, just to kind of protect our body from injury, really, because our positions are so weird and we're in them for so long. If you lift a lot of weights, your muscles are going to get bigger, which means that suit doesn't fit anymore.
Ah.
And that suit's like $2,000. So you don't want to grow out of it every 2 months.
Wow. Okay, back up for one moment. I need to learn about this suit, because that's insane. $2,000. Like what is costing so much about this suit that it's that expensive?
I wish I knew. I think there's only a handful of companies in the world. So I'm sure a lot of it is the material. The material is probably expensive, and then some of it is there's only a handful of them, so they can charge a little bit more. But I'm just grateful that I have never had to pay out of pocket for one thus far.
Yeah, I
because
bet.
It's crazy, and I think that's cheaper too. So,
Which is it?
yeah, you don't want to grow out of it.
Is it regulated? Is it a sport where the shooting federation are kind of going up and having to check this? Because I mean, can you? Like, I'm not condoning cheating here, but I'm saying, can you cheat with your suit? Like, I mean, this is. I've never thought about this before. That uniforms in shooting is a thing.
Right. Oh yeah. So all of our equipment is highly regulated. Every competition we go to, we have to go through equipment control, and what that looks like for the shooting suits, because they're stiff, made of canvas, is they have to go through these machines that I think were originally created for like fabric places. I can't remember the name of them, but they're just these little things that drop down, and it reads the thickness, and then the next machine reads the stiffness. So it has to meet those standards every time you go through. Otherwise, you can potentially be disqualified, not able to shoot, things like that. And I have seen it happen.
Fascinating. I got very excited a few years ago when we had a bunch of ski jumpers on and was learning all about, obviously, a sport like that. And no disrespect to shooting, I can understand in a sport like ski jumping, where obviously there's aerodynamics involved, there's all that kind of stuff, but never would have a million years thought that shooting suits are regulated. The things I learn, Ali, on this show. That's fascinating.
Our shoes are regulated to make sure they're not too stiff and don't, that they're bendable, all of that.
So that, and like, again, not condoning cheating, but like if they all of a sudden said tomorrow there are no restrictions, how much better would that make you shoot if you could make shoes a certain stiffness, your uniform, like levels that you can't do?
I would have no way of knowing. I'm sure people could figure it out, whether it's, figuring out how to make the suit so stiff that it doesn't move at all and it just holds your body perfectly still. Same thing with the shooting boots. If you can make it so they don't have any type of curve or anything to them to be able to, lose balance, rocking back and forth. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of ways to cheat if you really wanted to search for it.
Jeez, yeah. Again, not condoning it, but it's always those limits of the what ifs. If they had those restrictions. $2,000 for a suit. How much is your gun worth? And also, do you have the same gun that you've had for a certain amount of time? And do you give it a name? Is it kind of like your best friend? Like, I mean, I want to learn more about your weapon, essentially, that your tool of the trade.
Guns can be expensive. So for air rifle, they can be up to $5,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Especially depending on the model you get. There are some out there that are electronic triggers. So it's actually a battery operating the mechanism in there. So it's a little bit more accurate, a little bit more consistent, which is why people are starting to move to them. That's actually what I shoot. And so that one can run up to $5,000 depending on the stock you have it in. I have not been shooting the same gun for years. I actually started with a On-Shoot's 2002 Junior Woodstock when I was very young, shot it halfway through university until somebody was like, why are you shooting that? Like, there's these other guns that are better and have more adjustments and things you'll probably shoot better. And I didn't think about that ever. Don't know why. I was just stupid, I guess. I was just doing what I did. And so I actually bought a Walther air rifle for the first time from one of my friends and competitors. She was my best friend, and we shot against each other too, but she was upgrading hers to a different stock or gun, and then offered to sell me her old one. So I took that up and fell in love with it. Just fit me so much better. You had more adjustments. And then now I shoot another new gun. That's the one that I went to the Olympics with and won the world championship with, which is a Walther Monotech stock. So it was a new iteration of their stock that they came out with that has even more adjustments. So it looks completely different. It clamps the barrel differently instead of this like a whole other mechanism. Yeah, it's a whole lot that I don't even fully understand.
You get very excited talking about it though. Like I can see you like lighting up and it's like, oh, I can do all these things with it, right? Like that. Yeah, that's cool. Which, you're basically James Bond, right? Because if you're saying it's from Walther, then that, famously Walther PPK. So I'm just saying that makes you James Bond. Have you ever thought of that before?
I have not. I think I should make a poster though, for sure.
You should, absolutely. I think that should be a way to advertise yourself out there a little bit more and get the kids involved in shooting. And I think that would work. I think that we're always advocating for getting more people involved in the sports that we talk about on this show. So you're welcome, Ali. You're welcome. One thing actually I want to touch on before we get to the Olympics, Pan Am's 2019 gold medal there. That experience going to, I believe that was in Peru, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, correct.
Hey, research team, that's one for them. They're doing well. How was Peru and how was winning gold at the Pan Ams?
It was good. It was my first experience of a lot of stress. Before all of that, I was kind of still learning how to compete internationally. And that was my first competition where I kind of had to win because if I won, the U.S. would have another quota to go to the Olympics, and it was our last chance to earn that other quota.
Wow.
So I had to win. And so that was stressful. I did not necessarily handle the stress well. The people that were there with me can probably confirm that.
I'm going to ask what's crazy? What are you doing? Do the people of Peru still not want you back there because of how crazy you were? I mean, what happened?
No, it was just, I'm a very emotional person. Sometimes I wear my heart on my sleeve for whatever emotion it is. So it would kind of be random tears if like a training day didn't go well. My event was at the end and a lot of other people were succeeding. So I kind of started panicking internally. Like, what if I don't? What if I don't succeed and I'm one of the only people here that doesn't? So just a lot more tears. I'm also incredibly competitive. And so the high stress environment and highly competitive in everything, literally everything. They had some cornhole boards. I don't know if you guys know what cornhole is.
Yes. Yep.
Set up in the village outside of the Team USA building. And some of my teammates and friends and I were playing. I wasn't hitting the board at all. I was doing terrible. And somebody was making fun of me. And I kind of just snapped and screamed at them. And it was like, just shut up.
There was more words in there, Ali. You can vent right now if you want to relive that. You can say it on this show. It's fine.
I don't even know if I can remember them. It was just a whole snap, screaming.
They're bad when you can't remember them. That's great.
Yeah. Everyone kind of just went silent and just stared. I was like, I am so sorry. So we finished the game in silence. They came over and they were going to go over and hang out at the international zone to eat some food and grab, I think there's some beer and stuff over there. And they said, do you want to come? And I said, I'm going to be honest. I just did a little bit of self-reflection. I think it's better if I go sit by myself for a little bit, kind of recover, calm down again until I can be a human and function normally. Wow. And then I'll come in here with you guys. So it was an incredible experience, but such a huge growth experience too, to be able to come out from that and then still see success at the end of the week, earn that second quota that ultimately I got to, I think, pretty much fill when I made the Olympic team. So it was good.
But let me guess, when you got that gold medal around your neck, you then go back to that cornhole course and then you dominate, right?
Right. You're right. Yeah. No, actually, I think instead we went into the international zone and celebrated a little bit.
I'm okay now, guys. I can join you for that beer. Which, I mean, also, at least smile. Is it also that case too where it's your first taste of a multi-sport event where you are in that village environment, you are around athletes in other sports that no doubt shooters do not associate with, that helps you eventually experience obviously a bit differently in Tokyo given the circumstances, but still at least allowed you to experience that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I am very grateful that I had that experience beforehand because it's also the only event that we go to that you're staying in a village as well. So you're surrounded by other countries and, all of the apartment buildings, and you have a main cafeteria that you have to eat at in this dining hall, and eat whatever food that they're having served for you. So that was a huge experience for me, and I definitely, I think it's very beneficial to try to make that Pan American Games team before the Olympics every year.
Is it goal later this year to head to Chile for the next ones?
Absolutely, I sure hope so.
You got to defend the title, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly that, and then I've also always wanted to go to Chile, so
hey.
Two birds with one stone.
Bucket list. That's what you do that way. The Olympics, so obviously they're delayed. We know everything that kind of happened there. You touched on that level of not knowing if you have to qualify again. You ultimately end up there. Now, always like to learn just the experiences outside of the competing side, because you're in a very unique position. Your event is literally the first medal event of the Olympics, which we will touch on.
Right.
But outside of that, just getting to Tokyo, village life, getting your uniform, all those little things like that. I mean, how did you kind of soak all that up? And I'm going to ask you about the opening ceremony separately, so I'll get to that in just a moment as well.
Okay. I think it was hard to soak it up because it was so surreal. Every step of the way. I mean, we started traveling and I was like, okay, we're traveling to an international match. I've done this before, right? And then suddenly you start seeing all Team USA athletes, people from basketball, people from, volleyball teams, like all of these people start being in the same airport, like waiting at the same gate. Like, this whole flight is Team USA because we're going to the Olympics. Like, that's kind of wild. And, so it would start hitting you. And then as soon as you landed in Tokyo, of course we had COVID protocols. So we had to kind of like get shuffled through the airport, like station by station, and check all the boxes of the things we needed to do. But amidst that was, getting our credentials. That was going to be our credentials for the rest of the week that said, Olympian, Tokyo Olympics. And all of it was just surreal and so special. And then we got to the village at like when the sun was rising. It was like 5 or 6 a.m.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was a long process. But then we got checked into our rooms, unlocked our apartment door, walked in, went to our bedrooms, and we also had like a patio, and my bedroom was facing the Tokyo Bay area. So then just being able to watch the sunrise kind of over the Tokyo Bay and just letting it all kind of sink in was really, really awesome. And then we ate breakfast and took a nap. But
well, that's the main thing. You got to catch up, particularly if you're there that time. I think I saw in an interview you mentioned about the excitement of being on a team with Simone Biles. Did you get to meet Simone? Did you kind of just stalk her in the village?
I did not. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of stalking anyone in the village. I was just kind of more like, is that? I can't really tell. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's that person. Things like that. But the competition schedule and the training schedule, and just since we couldn't go to other events, made it, you pretty much only saw people in the dining hall and every now and then walking around.
But the thing that I love about your experience, Ali, which is what I've always been an advocate for, it's that opening ceremony and the fact that you made yourself go, because we learned so many stories about, I've got to compete the next day. Obviously, an opening ceremony is very long. It's drawn out, all that kind of stuff. But I've always said, like, no, fuck it. Like, I don't care if I'm competing at 5 in the damn morning. I am going to that opening ceremony, which you basically did you not? You basically said, no, fuck it. I'm going to the opening ceremony. And you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked to my coaches. I talked to our physio that was with us and said, hey, I know it's going to be a long night. I know I do have to compete tomorrow, but I think if I don't go, I'm going to be up all night, pretty sad, pretty disappointed in myself for not saying, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to go. And we worked out a deal. Like, I had some basically compression leggings to try to help with recovery and make sure that, I'm not killing my body by being on my feet for so long. And they did send one bus back early so I could get back to my room a little bit early and not necessarily stay for the whole thing, but at least walk through. And so I'm so grateful that I did, because I'm a big FOMO, which is fear of missing out, for anyone that doesn't know, person. And I would have just been sitting in my room sad as heck with so much FOMO. So I'm really glad I had that experience, because I think I'd do it again, honestly. A part of me was like, oh, now I don't have to do it next time, but I would do it again.
Which just between you and I, did it affect your performance the next day?
No.
Okay, good.
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that too. Not any little bit. It was actually probably one of the best performances I had. for
Okay,
quite some
I
time.
just wanted to clear that up in case you'd, hid that from your coach. No, I'm fine, coach. Let's go. Olympics.
They're like blaming me for shooting it, for not winning the Olympics. Like, just 'cause you win last year.
Yeah, so no, not at all. Not at all. I'm completely fine. 14th in the event, which, again, this is the first medal event of the Olympics. This is the one that us as people who are covering the games are straight away going, who's going to win the first gold medal of the Olympics? Obviously, it's top 10 make it through to the final round for the medals. I read your post that you did not long after Tokyo. It's a great post on Instagram where you sort of discuss sort of how you were feeling on the day. Kind of it was that pride, and then kind of it sort of turned into some negative thoughts, everything along those lines. Been a couple of years now, Ali. I mean, how do you sort of look back and reflect on that performance that you did have in Tokyo in the individual event?
I think I probably still look back at it in a pretty similar light of the post that I had made. I stepped off the line, and I can hold on to the more positive parts a little bit more now than what I did a few hours after. But when I stepped up to the line, right, before we even started competing, and I had such bad butterflies, and I had never really competed with such bad butterflies before, just the nerves just kind of hitting me. And I kind of talked myself down, talked myself out of that with all of the work I'd done with sports psychology, and just let myself compete. And when I finished and the score was not at all what I wanted, I was bummed. I was for sure like, dang, I definitely could. I know I can shoot better scores. Like, I know I could have been in the, top 8 or trying to win a medal later today. But I also had such a good match as far as staying level-headed, never getting frustrated, never getting down on myself, staying positive, making all of the right choices. When you think of shooting and the shooting sports, you're like, oh, well, they don't really move. They don't do a whole lot. But we have a whole process that we have to do, and it's all about consistency. And I was so proud of the choices I had made through all of that, and, staying consistent, staying on top of things, and doing everything I was supposed to do. So I think now, this many years later, 2 years later, I kind of have realized that I want to remember those pieces more often at every match. So like, that's kind of my goal for every match, is to be able to step off the line and really truly say, like, I gave it everything I had, whether it worked for me that day or did not work for me that day.
And 14th at an Olympics, though, Ali, no matter what happens from this point on, I mean, God, I would take 700th at an Olympics, to be completely honest with you. But I mean, that's still pretty, and your first Olympics too, and to come, barely 3-4 years after making your first national team as well. So going from your nearly making, the drama in 2016 to that point, I mean, again, reflection, it changes a little bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And makes you hungrier then obviously for what's going to happen through everything there. I mean, obviously you compete in the mixed event as well. So through that one, you get through to the second qualifying stage, ultimately don't make the top 4 for the shootout. But the thing that you talk about being competitive, when you've got teammates who then you are beating in the first round of qualifying, they then beat you in the second round and go on to win the silver medal. Obviously, you're happy for them, but there's obviously, I can imagine that competitiveness going like, oh, well, we beat them in that first bit. That could have been us. Like, does that ever hit you at all?
I would say it probably kicks me a little bit, but it was also part of like, dang, like, because the competitiveness would come from more rather than, it'd be more so being like, dang, like, I wish we could be shooting against them for that medal. You know what I mean? So that way we could both be leaving for a medal, and like, just who gets the better one.
Yeah, exactly. But, which I mean, everyone likes color gold over silver. I never get when people say like, oh, get me a silver ring, like, like I wear silver. Like, no, gold's better. We always want gold, right? Come on. Yeah. No, good. I'd love to meet an athlete who's like, yeah, I really wanted to win that silver medal at the Olympics.
Yeah. No kidding. I think I've heard, we used to joke, and not even joke, people just talk about, they've heard, like, research has found that, like, bronze is like the happiest person. Well, gold is obviously happy, but bronze is the happiest person because they made it on the podium.
Yep.
Silver is like the most depressed person up there because they didn't win the gold, so they don't even really feel like they should be up there. And then gold is obviously happy, but
Yep. And unless you're Michael Phelps, you're like, oh, another gold, put it on the pile.
Dude.
Do I need another one of these? Yeah, exactly. Oh, too many when it comes to that. Fast forward, obviously, to last year. First rifle world champion for the US in 43 years in Cairo. What a place to win a gold medal.
Yep.
And the final, reading an interview you did with the Olympics website, sort of talking about, the nutritional side of things, but this 30-second timeout that you had in this shootout to win the title that basically helped change it. Tell us a little bit about what happened there in the final and kind of how you were able to use that to then win the world championship.
Man, okay, yeah. So I honestly was not expecting my coach to take that 30-second timeout. I was a little shocked when he did, not in a bad way. I was like, oh, all right, like we're taking this. What am I gonna do? So the final was good. I was shooting well. I was happy with what I was doing. She was also shooting well. So I knew that I couldn't really give up a lot of anything. I had to kind of stay on top of my game. I couldn't relax much. And then I did shoot a couple of 9s in a row, which in the sport of rifle is not good. A shallow, it's in decimal scoring. So basically even a 10.0 isn't great. You're going to lose ground where the decimals are adding up. But thankfully in that one, it didn't make me lose any ground, but I did lose 2 points. So a total of 4 points in a row, which got a little stressful because I didn't see those 9s. I didn't know why they both went basically on top of each other. I didn't really know. I kind of went into like a small bit of a panic mode and a fix-it mode. And which thankfully that timeout, my coach didn't really have anything to say about the previous shots. I think he might have literally said like, maybe we can just figure out a little bit, like you're doing fine, take a breath, it's going to be all right. And for whatever reason, it's just what I needed to sort of just pull me out of that panic mode and go right back into my normal process and what I'm capable of. And just kind of sticking to that performance aspect and less so on the potential outcome that was in reach. Incredible.
Just 30 seconds can change so much and then go on to that point, which I love hearing this level that you have of that stress and everything that you have, but then to, I guess, relieve it with winning a gold medal. I mean, what's that feeling like? And were you aware that it had been 43 years since America had won a world championship in rifle?
I was not. I'm not good at history. It was never my best school topic.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I did not know that until after, which was even more exciting and grateful, maybe even just a little bit humbling. We're just like, wow, like I was able to do that for our country, which is super cool. And that it was me. And as soon as I did win, I kind of closed it out. I think back, and I've never gone back and watched the final. I really should, because they're always up, and I just haven't gotten myself to do it because I'm a little bit nervous because I'm going to judge myself when I watch it, even if it's just like, why'd you make that face? I haven't done that yet. But I do remember feeling, almost in a way like I was kind of not afraid to celebrate, but I struggled to celebrate right away because it was just like, I don't really know what's going on. Like all of the adrenaline was still kind of hitting, and we have to, put our clear bore indicator in, or our safety flag in to make sure that the barrel's clear and there's no rounds or anything in it. And put my gun down, and it was just kind of like slowly hitting me over and over again. And then the photos and all of that. Yeah. Just excitement, gratitude, that everything, all the hard work I'd put in was, came together, and I saw it at this level, and that I held it together, honestly, especially after that bit of a panic mode, that I was able to come through and close it out.
And that also secures a quota for the US, of course, for Paris as well, which, as we know in sports, sadly doesn't guarantee your place in there. Obviously, there's still separate qualifying spots to go there. But back to my point, looks kind of good on the resume, doesn't it, that you achieved that broken 43-year drought? I mean, come on, Team USA. I think Ali might have that slot. Yeah. It definitely, I think, looks good on the resume. I definitely have, obviously immense amount of support from Team USA and the USA Shooting and then the US Army as well. So I cannot complain about that. That helps me a whole bunch, and I think they have a lot of confidence in me being able to do that, even when I'm not having good days, right? Like, I don't think they think, oh, it was just a one-time deal, she's done. Yeah.
They thankfully are very supportive of me still.
But it still also changes a lot right now. You're just always introduced into a room as world champion. Ali Weisz versus just like, oh, he's Ali, but now it's world champion, right? Like, I mean, come on. That's just, and is it a case of whenever somebody like introduces you, like, excuse me, world champion Ali Weisz, like, correct yourself, like, you've got to be that way. I think you should be.
Yeah, I know a lot of people think I should be, but that is never who I've been. I kind of forgot about it happening pretty quick after.
Oh, that little thing. Why did I go to Egypt? What was I doing there? Oh.
They were like, oh, this is, she's a world champion. And I was like, please stop. I'm just trying to eat dinner.
I think you should totally like just go into restaurants and just be like, you know, like, oh, world champ. We always do that when we talk to medalists on this show, particularly from the Olympics. We say like, do you get free shit with your medal? Like, do you just walk into McDonald's like, hey, Olympic medal, free Big Mac? Like, have you tried? Have you like, obviously you. No, well, do it. I think you should. Like, I'm putting the challenge out there for you, Ali. Come on, let's see what you can get.
There's definitely a few things that I would love to try to like, be like, hey, can we work together? You know, or something like that, or you know.
Go, give us some examples. Cool. Put it out there into the universe. What would you like to do with that?
Okay, this one's a crazy one, and I'm actually not even sure. There's a lot of rules in the Army, so I don't know if I could. But a dream would be I have an old 1976 Ford Bronco that my grandfather left me when he passed away, and it needs to be redone. And so there's a few places in the U.S. that, you know, completely redo these Broncos, but for a lot of money.
Hey,
and not a lot of money that I have right now. And so I was like, man, if we could work something out, that would be the coolest thing.
World champion shooter Ali Weisz wants her car fixed, right? I tell you what, you put it out there, it will happen. And you know what would make it even better? An Olympic gold medal. So
they would.
There you go. I don't know if those $2,000 suits are allowed sponsorship, but you could have like Joe's Garage written across your suits, right, at the Olympics. I know they frown upon sponsorship at the Olympics, but we'll talk to Thomas. Don't worry. Like, you could do it to get your car. Like, I think we can do that. Surely, just don't tell the Army. Just, they won't know, right? I won't tell them if you don't.
I got a loan.
That podium off the Podium show I did in Australia, they paid me a lot of money to get my car fixed. Before I get to some questions to sort of close it out, just some fun ones to get to know you, just on your role with the Army. So you're in the Army Marksmanship Unit. Now, if I'm reading this correctly, Ali, do you basically get paid to train for the Olympics in the Army? Is that the way I can look at it?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to look at it for sure. It's a specialty unit in the Army, so I am still active duty in the U.S. Army, but this specialty unit, our job is to compete and train on the international and national level, win medals, go to the Olympics, things like that. We're also a really great recruiting tool just to sort of like show people in the U.S. that there's more to the U.S. Army than just shooting big guns and being on the front lines. There's a lot of other options, a lot of other jobs. I think we have over 150 jobs or more by now.
Wow.
It's basically this, if there's a job in the civilian world, you probably have that job in the Army. So for me, I'm very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to be in the Army, be supported financially, which means I get to support myself financially and not have to worry about much and be able to focus on training.
So not only are you James Bond, you're also Captain America.
Right.
This is.
Can I be both? Is that possible?
Of course. I mean, anything to get your car fixed. Absolutely. Right. I mean, I'm just saying it right now. The more we can sell this, you know, world champion James Bond, Captain America. I mean, why can't you get your car? Like, come on.
Right.
This
Easy.
should be getting it done. But I mean, that does sound amazing though, because I don't think there are many, you know, opportunities for people or Olympic athletes to find a job that's basically your job is to go to the Olympics. They're basically saying, well, you're going to go out there and go. Are there other sports within the Army that they do that with outside of shooting?
There is. I don't know much about how to get into it, but there is the Army's World Class Athlete Program. Right. And it's based out of Fort Carson, Colorado. And there's wrestlers, maybe boxers, swimmer. I think some swimmers. There's a handful of people in sports up there that are a part of the Army. I think maybe some track athletes as well that are in this World Class Athlete Program, which means they're also in the U.S. Army.
Fantastic.
And they get supported in a similar way.
Wow. Jeez, that's how to do it. I like that.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's a cool way to serve your country, in two kinds of ways.
Well, I was
for
going to
sport
say,
and-
you're literally doing it on both levels, which
Yeah.
fascinating way to do that. Ali, we like to wrap out with sort of get to know you style questions. Actually, one thing I want to ask, we always ask generally our medalists what they do with the medal. What do you do with your World Championship medal? Is it in your pocket right now so you can try and get the free stuff, or?
No, this is such an embarrassment. I'm embarrassed to answer this question. It's in a box. Just
That's
hanging out with some other medals that I haven't hung up.
you got to wait for the Olympics, right? You got to wait for the Olympic one to put it side by side. That's what you're doing, right?
Eventually, I'll put it in like a shadow box and hang it on the wall. But for now, it's just chilling in a box on the floor.
Saying
Awful.
right now, not the worst answer we've had to that, where some of the people put it. It's not in a sock in your underwear drawer or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's just literally some people have it just sitting there
That's
chilling.
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Other people have it around their neck when they're doing the interview, but hey,
Yeah, I thought about it. I was like, I should have grabbed it. But
who are we to judge on the preparation it takes of being on this esteemed podcast such as ours? Ali, we wrap it up with a set of get to know questions now. As always, these are a set of questions that were given to Team Canada athletes ahead of both Rio and Pyeongchang. Simple get to know you questions, but there is, as always, if you want to, there is an element of drawing. It's completely optional. But basically, if you want to do some homework, you've got not much on the evening, I can give you some prompts and you can do some drawing and send it in to us. So how are you at drawing, by the way?
not great.
Not great. Okay, cool. I'm waiting to get one person who's like, yeah, it's my favorite thing. I'm drawing for you right now. We have had a few athletes do it. Only winter athletes, though. No summer athletes.
Okay.
So,
Man, maybe I should do it then.
I was going to say, I know you're competitive. So basically, it would be draw a picture of yourself, draw a picture of a teammate, and also your favorite animal. So,
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, just
Okay, I'll try. I think I might try to do that for you.
All right, good. All right, flick it through to us and we'll put it on our social. Let's start off with your favorite ever Olympic moment is. And you can't say your own.
I can't?
You can. You're allowed to.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to say standing in the tunnel, like the experience of standing in the tunnel before Team USA walks through the opening ceremony, because it's like so much pride and chanting, USA, USA, and it just echoes through the whole tunnel. So that's probably my favorite thing right now.
The thing that obviously you didn't get that full experience just in terms of an empty stadium and everything, but we're sort of doing a series here in the show at the moment where we're going back and watching old opening ceremonies and kind of giving their takes on it. But no matter where the Olympics are in the world and USA walks out in the stadium, they always get this cheer, right? It's like, here's the US, here they are. So, I mean, and Paris itself is going to be unique, obviously, because it's going down the river, essentially. So you got to keep going to LA so you can go out there in SoFi Stadium, right, and kind of do that at home. So that's where you got to keep tracking towards as well.
Right.
Just putting it out there into the universe. And then Brisbane, so you can come to Australia in 2032, right?
Man, yeah, I thought I was going to be done after 28, but then when that one came out, I've always wanted to go to Australia. So I was like, we might keep going. Exactly.
And again, as somebody with a lot of sway in this country, I formally invite you to Australia because clearly, I'm needed to do that. If you could choose, well, on that topic, if you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be?
Any Olympic host. Oh man, it's going to be a pretty big tie between Australia, so it's happening. So anywhere really in Australia. And then somewhere in Italy. Okay.
Yep. You can go to the Winter Olympics in about in a year and two and a bit years.
Change sports real quick.
Biathlon, do you know how to ski? You got half of it done. Well, learn to ski. There you go. You could go to Milan.
It's probably the hardest thing to learn.
Yeah, I'm sure that's that simple, right? As somebody who clearly knows biathlon well, just learn to ski. You can shoot. So it's that simple. Hello to all our biathletes listening to the show today. In your spare time, what do you most like to do?
Spend time outside. I love the outdoors, especially in the nice weather. I know I've had a friend call me I'm like a lizard. If there's sun out, I want to be out in it or just be warm. So I have a dog now, so it's definitely hanging out on the back porch with my dog, hanging out with her, or hiking, things like that. Just going on adventures.
Nice. What type of dog? What's her name?
Her name is Lucy. I adopted her last July, actually, just before World Championships. And she's a Great Pyrenees Alaskan Malamute husky.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, she's a fluff monster for
Well, I
sure.
was going to say that I had a husky growing up. They are a unique dog, but
Yep.
amazing at the same time, right? Like they've got the most uniquest personality of any dogs I think I've ever experienced.
Yep. Yeah. Very vocal, very independent, but also needy when they want to be. So like, excuse me, I need attention now.
Yep.
Okay, I'm a little busy,
Exactly.
but sure.
Yeah, exactly. The weirdest instruction a coach ever gave you was?
I won't say the weirdest instruction because I don't know that for sure. But the weirdest thing was jokingly threatening to throw a shoe at me if I didn't follow through or like do the right thing that I was working on.
Are you sure they were joking?
No, I definitely think they probably actually did toss a shoe at me, but at least it wasn't aggressive or hard.
Wow. Jeez.
Playful, not aggressive. At least.
I mean, whatever works. That just reminds me, didn't George Bush back in the day, was he in like Iraq or something like that, and he got shoes thrown at him like that? Like it was something along those lines, I remember. Like, I mean, geez, maybe that's just effective. It gets you motivated. Like, wow. Okay, I like that one. We talked a little bit about your sort of working out before, but do you have a favorite workout? I mean, let's throw that either mentally or physically, kind of like you have a favorite workout.
Probably like just a really good core burner, like an ab burner. Done some where there's probably like 10 different exercises that you have to go through a couple times, and by the end of it, your abs are just screaming for help. I love those. I don't know why I love those. The other thing I like doing, I don't like running, so for cardio, is a Jacob's ladder. Everyone hates it, and it is pretty much actual hell. But for whatever reason, when I finish it, I feel so much more accomplished because I'm like, yeah, that thing sucks, and I just did it. So,
yeah, that's the beauty though of like a good workout. Like, yeah, it's torture, but there's something so satisfying when you can say you're sore. Like that's the weird thing, isn't it?
Right.
Like that a workout is the only thing where you are happy to be sore afterwards.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like I did something.
You did something. Like I achieved it. Right there, you go.
Right.
If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
Oh man, I used to have such good answers for this.
Your drawing's going to make up for it, though, Ellie. Trust us.
I hope so, man.
Yeah.
I don't have a reason why.
You never have to have a reason why on this show. It's fine.
But I'm just gonna say Abraham Lincoln.
Noble. I like that.
Yeah.
That works.
I just think it'd be interesting. It's like from a very different time period. So just like ask questions about that time period. Like what was life like, you know?
I think the unique thing about having lunch with any really well-known historical figure would be to get that perspective of talking, and particularly people say in an era where there wasn't TV, there wasn't like footage, there wasn't interviews. Like I would love to have lunch with Barack Obama, but we see him a lot on TV and all that sort of stuff. So you kind of get to know, was Abraham Lincoln, unless it was Daniel Day-Lewis playing him in a movie, like, you know, it's kind of, what do we sort of have with that? I like that answer. I like that answer. Your favorite sandwich is?
Turkey, brie, and cranberry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's a good combo.
Now, got to ask the bread, though. What type of bread are we having with this?
Ciabatta.
Oh, good answer. All right. That's making me hungry. If you could have any superpower, we know you're Captain America and James Bond, so you've got these, but if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Probably teleportation, just because I like traveling, but it takes so much time. It's like, oh, if I could just like teleport there and then spend a day and teleport home, that'd be awesome.
Yep, that makes it easy. The best candy in the world is?
Chocolate.
Yes.
Chocolate, dark chocolate, big chocolate girl.
Oh, dark chocolate. Yes, I do love some dark chocolate. As a kid, your favorite sports team was?
It didn't have one.
Oh, okay. Do you have one now? Do you have one now?
I'm going to have to go with, I'm big into college sports. So if I was going to really choose, I kind of have to choose my alma mater, which is Ole Miss, but they're not always great. So.
Okay. That's the beauty of going for not great sports teams is that when they do become great, you've gone on a ride with them, right? So that's
exactly,
yeah. Sports fans know pain because, and that's not the good pain, like the working out pain, right? So
yeah, right. That's the worst pain.
Exactly. Your favorite sports movie is?
I can't answer this one. Mostly because I cannot think of the name of it.
Can you give us a description and we can try and guess it, or putting you on the spot too much?
No, you're fine. I think it changes a lot. I'm not really good with favorites, but it's a football one, kind of an underdog team. They have to do a bunch of these like exercises across the football field or down the football field.
Remember the Titans?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. There's a few of those, but I didn't say the Water Boy because you didn't say Adam Sandler. Usually you lead with Adam Sandler for those sort of ones.
Yeah.
But
No.
It's interesting actually because like NFL, American football is pretty big in Australia of all things, but it's kind of one of those things whenever there's like a movie about it, like Australians always seem to love it, and it's kind of like that's how we get educated, right? It's like that and playing Madden. Yeah. We have no idea what's going on until we do it. It's like, okay, cool. Yep. That's how you play it. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Italy.
Have you been to Italy before?
I have. Yeah, we had a small training camp just before the World Championships in 2018 that I got to experience there. I think we were in Bologna and then like traveled down to Florence. So got to learn the love of their food, just how social they are and friendly they are. I really like a lot of that.
Brilliant. I always love this question because you can interpret this however the heck you want. It's fantastic. When you were little, what was one thing you always thought?
Oh, man. One thing I always thought. I think that I would be a veterinarian. I think I really thought that.
Okay. Is that on the cards? Could you do that still, do you think? No? Not quite? Okay.
No, I have surpassed that. I definitely don't want to do the school or anything with it, and I fell in love with the nutrition side of things. So
Okay, that works. The last one here, again, you might not have one to go ready, or you might. I don't know. What is your favorite joke to tell?
Dang. Yeah, I don't have one.
Don't have one? No, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, again, like everyone's always got one or they don't. It's just kind of like it's sort of, one.
I went through a phase for a little bit where, not a phase, like there was a short amount of time where I heard this funny one that was really funny, but now it's been so long, so I can't remember it.
You can send it in with the drawings, that sort of stuff. And actually, off the cusp, we're gonna add this just because this was an ongoing joke in this show, which apparently we find funny, but others don't. What is your favorite Meatloaf song?
I don't think I really even know.
Do you know who Meatloaf is?
No, I know who who they are.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, good.
I just don't know song names or like songs. I have to like pull up Spotify.
Yeah, I heard "Bat Out of Hell," but others.
Okay, perfect. Take it. If that gets you a point amongst the group.
I tell you now, you thought my long-winded question that I asked you in this interview was bad. I'll send you a link to maybe the worst interview question I've ever asked in my life, and it related to Meatloaf. So there you go. Ali, before we let you go, if people want to follow you on your journey between now and Paris and beyond, Instagram, social media, where can people sort of stay up to date with what you're up to?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably biggest on Instagram. So it's at @_Weisz 7.
And 7. Is that a lucky number 7, or is that just because there were 6 others before you? Or
no, favorite number.
Favorite number.
For whatever reason, it's my favorite number.
Just pick one. Done. Simple that way. Ali, this is 7 gold medals is what that's what it means for. That's what you're aiming towards. So much fun, Ali, to learn a lot more about sort of your career, the sport of shooting and everything along those lines too. Good luck with everything moving forward for Paris, for LA, for Chile this year, as well as Brisbane and beyond. And we look forward to hearing about this car. Please send us pictures of that as well once we get all the sponsorship deals for you after this interview. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.